evening from Los Angeles, California. I'm Dr. Ryan Abba. As expected, Trump announced a presidential run for 2024.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Per usual, Trump, who can come anywhere near taking personal responsibility, he began by blaming Biden for everything he caused, such as the contract he personally signed with Taliban in Afghanistan, practically forcing Biden to leave Afghanistan.
The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president, are something.
Trump's announcement comes just after practically every Republican begged him not to announce his run until after Georgia's runoff. But given who Trump is, a person who doesn't consider anybody or anything else other than his own personal agenda and personal gain, he announced his run anyway. Trump's motivation to announce a run for 2024 stems only from his great fear of being under investigation. He is only hoping that his presidential run would stop the DOJ from further investigating him, and a presidential win would put him in a position of power to put a stop to the entire investigation. Only one problem. Anything that Donald Trump touches turns into ashes. From his business endeavors to his disgraceful presidency, all were great failures. Might I remind you, Trump is a disgraced, single-term, twice impeached president with a phony personality and no educational background whatsoever. Look, I believe the best testament to the fact that he is a loser, whom even the Republicans have begun rejecting, is the results of the 2022 midterm elections, where almost all Trump-supported candidates lost.
Maybe you could say this different. His own candidates actually conceded. Like Don Bolduc, the campaign is over. Tudor Dixon, we came up short. Tim Michaels, it wasn't our night tonight. Mehmet Oz, I called John Fetterman and congratulated him. So the Trump-backed candidates wouldn't play the Trump crazy to deny their loss. That must mean something to the grassroots point, no?
Yeah, and furthermore, I think even more importantly, and this dovetails with what you're saying, excuse me, the Trump candidates, not only in the Senate, but in the House, Trump candidates, Trump-fueled candidates, Trump-inspired candidates lost resoundingly. I mean, you look at these districts around the country. Bo Hines in North Carolina is a perfect example. A winnable seat for House Republicans would have put them on a clearer path to the majority. Lost. I mean, there are just J.R. Majewski in Ohio.
John Gibbs in Michigan.
I mean, it is not
Joe Kent in Washington State.
A Republican, a double-digit Republican district.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they're all losing.
In all honesty, I'm happy that Trump didn't listen to the advice of Republicans to hold on his presidential run announcement, because it will most likely encourage more people to come out on December 6th Georgia runoff and vote for Senator Raphael Warnock. I'll leave you with this. Trump was the worst performing president in the modern history of American presidency. He left office with double the unemployment rate when he took office, and he lost more than 250,000 manufacturing jobs. And Biden added 700,000, almost 3 times of what Trump lost in less than half of time in the office.
During his administration, the former president lied a lot, like a lot. With that in mind, let's bring in CNN fact checker Daniel Dale to look at his remarks tonight. Daniel, what stood out to you?
Anderson, that was more accurate because he was indeed on teleprompter than much of what you'll hear from him at rallies, but it was still less accurate than anything you'll hear from basically anyone else in politics. Just wildly incorrect claims. The claim that ISIS was defeated in 3 weeks, that he went decades without a war, that no previous president had taken in $1 from China. These claims are not even close to true. And then there was a general narrative about the economy under him. He can say whatever he wants about the pre-pandemic economy, but he suggested that the economy was thriving 2 years ago when he left office. Look, he left office with the unemployment rate about double what it is today. So the idea that the Biden administration did not have to do anything and everything would have been hunky-dory is just absurd as well.
There's a couple of other moments that stood out to you. I want to play one now. Let's listen.
The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years, is all that is talked about, and yet nuclear weapons, which would destroy the world immediately, are never even discussed as a major threat. Can you imagine? They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years.
Anderson, Trump was inaccurate here about climate change, both specifically and generally. This specific claim, he said today, unnamed people say the oceans will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years. That is totally wrong. In reality, the U.S. government's National Ocean Service says this. They say sea level along the U.S. coastline is projected to rise on average 10 to 12 inches in the next 30 years, which will be as much as the rise measured over the last 100 years. But Trump also generally suggested climate change might only affect us in some general way in 300 years. That also is not true. It's affecting us now, as we know, in a whole variety of serious ways. And that's not some radical left-wing view. Here's what the Pentagon, the military, said in a report last year. They said increasing temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, more frequent, intense, and unpredictable extreme weather conditions caused by climate change are exacerbating existing risks and creating new security challenges for U.S. interests. And finally, Anderson, nobody is not paying attention to nuclear issues because they're focused on climate change. That's not a real choice. Again, that's absurd.
I know there's another moment that jumped out at you I want to play.
Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election.
Now, I'll leave aside this claim about the motivation for Biden's releases from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but it is not true, Anderson, that President Trump filled it up. In fact, if you go to the U.S. Energy Information Administration website and look at the actual data, the reserve had fewer barrels of oil when Trump left office than when he took office. Now, he did propose at one point in his administration that the reserve be filled up with tens of millions more barrels, but he never secured the funding for it from Congress. It never happened. And although Biden has indeed released a bunch of oil to help keep oil and gas prices down, it is not virtually depleted. It's not empty, as he claimed in a rally in November. It is still the world's largest strategic reserve of petroleum.
Yeah, Dale, appreciate it. Fact checking. Thank you.
To support my work, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Also, please don't forget to hit the bell icon so you wouldn't miss any of my new videos. Thanks for watching.